Good morning, welcome to News and New Day. We come to you live from the John Hammond Street at Kanda here in Accra. My name is Judith Brown. Coming up this morning. Widespread condemnation greets comments of Agric Minister Ibrahim, who says the NPP will do whatever it takes to win the 2024 elections. Also this morning, National Democratic Congress set to launch its Youth Manifesto later today as the world marks International Youth Day. And the National Commission on Civic Education cautioned youth to resist attempts to be used to foment trouble in the upcoming elections in December. Details of these and more coming up shortly. Please do stay with us. Right here on your Election Command Center, the Member of Parliament for Tamale Central, Ibrahim Mutala Muhammad, says it is reckless for the Agric Minister, Ibrahim, to say that the New Patriotic Party will use any possible means to win power. He contends that the statement from the Abetifi MP could foment trouble and raise tensions during the December elections. Ibrahim at a campaign rally in Nsawam argued strongly that there is no way the National Democratic Congress can win the elections due to the good records of the NPP, a statement that has been condemned.
This is not the first time the Abetifi MP has made a similar statement, projecting an emphatic win for the New Patriotic Party. For him, the NPP is an election-winning machine, one that makes it practically impossible for the National Democratic Congress to win this year's election. The Minister of Food and Agriculture says anyone who does not understand this can go to bend the sea.
Whether the NDC likes it or not, they will never win the 2024 elections. We will do whatever it takes to win the elections.
The NDC will not have any of that, describing Brian Achampon's campaign message as extremely reckless. Member of Parliament for Tamale Central fears this could be a strong ground for trouble in the polls.
This is not the first time such reckless, dangerous and irresponsible statements are made by Brian Achampong and leading members of the NPP. Throughout the tour that Dr. Bawumia is engaged in, they are not talking about issues. They are either using religion, ethnicity, and many other divisive language for the purposes of winning an election. Inshallah, we will also do everything possible to prevent the NPP from winning this election.
Experts say the polarized nature of the political space and the stakes involved in the December polls make it vulnerable for electoral instability. And many have warned against the use of indecent language to prevent incidents of violence. Mutala Mohammed is worried about the silence of major stakeholders, including religious leaders, over such comments.
But the deaf silence of the religious leaders in this country, leaders of civil society organizations and chiefs, for me, is legendary. That such inflammatory words are used, such divisive and dangerous statements are made by leading members of the NPP on political party platforms, and none of them, they are all in a complete state of incommunicado. No one is condemning this. These reckless statements were made by any leading member of NDC. You would have heard them on the rooftop condemning President Mahama and condemning everybody. So if they would remain silent, the NDC will not remain silent in the matter of things like this. And we are waiting for them.
The West Africa Center for Counter-Extremism has also urged political parties to abstain from intemperate language.
The commentary we're seeing so far does not help the issues. The language they use is important. They have to be mindful of the fact that language shapes behavior, and the sort of language you use can inspire your followers to act in a similar manner, which could be towards violence.
Regardless, the NPP's Brian Achampong is confident the NPP can rely on pastors, imams and traditionalists in the party to annex victory easily.
We are a political party that has pastors, imams and traditionalists. So whatever means we will take to win the elections, we will do so.
And for stakeholders, there is a crucial need for clear guidelines to ensure credible elections and peace. Christian Yale, TV3 News.
Meanwhile, political analyst and research fellow at the Center for Democratic Development, CDD Ghana, Dr. John Osei says, whereas such comments could trigger political tension in the country, institutions like the Ghana Police Service, the National Peace Council and other CSOs have a role to play in such political persons, putting them to order.
I believe the security forces, for example, can, because I believe when the first instance happened, there was some conversation with the political parties that, encouraged them to watch their rhetoric and make sure that they don't interpret language that can potentially upend the security and stability of the country. So for me, an institution like our security forces, the police, can, issue statements that cautions, our politicians, political party supporters, that in the heat of the campaign, please be mindful of your language. Make sure you stay away from rhetoric that, has potential security implications for the country. We do have a peace council. The peace council can regularly also speak up against these matters. And then there are civil society organizations who regularly do point out these things and speak up against them. You also have the media who report on it and raise some of these questions like, well, should we be worried? Should we stay away from this? And make sure that we are constantly having these conversations around the peace, the security of the country, but most importantly, making sure that we don't engage in this kind of intemperate language as we campaign vigorously to win the election.
We stay on elections now. The chairperson of the National Commission for Civic Education, Catherine Adi, has underscored the need for Ghanaians to be sensitive to their civic responsibility of keeping the environment healthy and sustainable for sustainable development. She says corrupt practices that tend to destroy the environment must be resisted to safeguard the future.
The full participation of women and youth in national affairs helps in the attainment of peace, prosperity, and development. The NTC's forum brought together students from various schools to discuss issues pertaining to the sustainability of peace during the election period. The Commission says engaging the students is part of a series of activities put together to include religious tolerance.
If we are not careful and we allow ourselves to be divided either through money, violence, misinformation, or religion, if we allow ourselves to be divided as a country or as Ghanaians, we will now create a major problem, because this year is a different type of election. We have an external threat in the sub-region that is dying to come and destabilize this country. And those threats thrive where there is disagreement and where there is a misunderstanding.
The various schools were made to share their knowledge and understanding on political issues.
Electoral violence should be a thing of the past because it cuffs the ankles of our soul and derelicts the epic of our minds.
Even though in this modern time, all our politicians, I would say, are corrupt, but yes, they should vote for the person who they really think is ready for the job and can do the job and do it well.
Money in politics breeds corruption as well as money over merit.
Making decisions at home, in our workplaces, in schools, we don't involve violence. We don't use knives and then all other things to hurt people. So there's no difference here. You can just go to the police station, do what you're supposed to do peacefully, go back home and then decide to watch on the television and everything will be fine.
The negative effects of violent elections from parts of the world, particularly some African countries, have shown women and children are the most vulnerable. The National Commission for Civic Education, NCC, says it will continue to engage students and women in other regions to ensure a successful and peaceful election.
Now, the National Democratic Congress is set to launch the party's youth manifesto later today. The flag bearer, John Dramani Mahama, is expected to be in attendance and will outline an NDC government what it will do for the youth of the country when voted into power. Now, the NDC will also seek to highlight initiatives of the NDC to tackle various youth-related issues on unemployment and education. Meanwhile, the International Youth Day is an awareness day designated by the United Nations that will draw attention to a given set of cultural and legal issues surrounding the youth. The theme for this year's celebration is From Cliques to Progress, Youth Digital Pathways for Sustainable Development, the digital age reshaping our world, providing unique opportunities to accelerate sustainable development. Now, away from elections, the Youth Opportunity and Transformation in Africa says there are gaps in the current national employment policy, which requires urgent government intervention. Now, among them is skills mismatch, and there's more in this report.
A recent report by the Ghana Statistical Service has showed that almost 2 million people aged 15 to 35 are idle, according to the annual Household Income and Expenditure Survey. This number is not in employment, education or training. The National Employment Policy was developed 10 years ago to ensure job creation for the teeming unemployed youth. But whilst the policy has expired with little to show, the team lead at the Youth Opportunity and Transformation in Africa, Eric Safro, said there are skills mismatch and technological issues to deal with.
What we're recommending to the Ministry of Employment is looking at one, skills matching, and looking at different sectors where young people can find jobs, and providing the necessary skills, one, and the necessary resources that can support young people to find jobs.
At a policy dialogue in Accra, Head of Youth Employment and Skills at the Africa Center for Economic Transformation, ASET, Mona Idrisu, said the organization will continue to work with African governments to create the right jobs.
So we work hand in hand with government. We also facilitate the creation of high-quality knowledge products so that we can use that to inform policy making. We also have the policy engagement aspect of our work, which looks at how we're ensuring that we are bringing together key stakeholders to work hand in hand with government to create such policies.
Now, the flag bearer of the NDC, John Dramani Mahama, has questioned the government's financial clearance of some 17,000 nurses to be enrolled onto the payroll 3 months to the elections. While speaking to student nurses in Bolga, John Mahama described the move as a political gimmick, challenging government to also pay the allowances in full.
All of us are waiting for 7th December. We know the problems with trainee nurses. And that is why when we're in government, we said we're going to substitute your allowance with the student's loan. That's what we said. And that is because we wanted to create more employment for you. What is important for you is not the allowance, it is to get a job when you finish school. But somebody came and said he will pay the allowances. Unfortunately, it was 419. When he went to Techiman, he took a young, small trainee nurse like you to say that you promised us you will pay our allowances. I entered nursing training 3 years ago. I'm in my final year. For the 3 years I've been in school, I have not received even allowance once. And you know what? They pretended like they didn't know. Oh, allowances? I'm not sure. I have to ask the Minister of Finance. I am saying that come and pay the nurses. You owe them almost 30 months of arrears. Some of them have left school without receiving their allowances. And some of them are going to leave school again without receiving their allowances. But one thing I can assure you, it is about jobs. And NDC is committed to jobs. And so we are going to create the situation where we can employ as many of you as possible. What the NPP does is, they don't employ for 4 years. Then when it's getting to elections, they quickly say, oh, we've opened the portal for employment. And so they say they've got financial clearance to employ 15,000 nurses.
Now, away from that, the Foreign Affairs Ministry has refuted allegations by the former president regarding the purported strained relations between Ghana and the Republic of Burkina Faso. Now, the former president, during his media interaction in the Upper East region, said President Akufo-Addo's recent commentary and engagement with the United States government has affected the relationship between the Republic of Ghana and the Republic of Burkina Faso, causing diplomatic tension between the two states. According to the ministry, such claims of diplomatic tension are wholly unfounded and lack any substantial evidence or merit.
And that is why when we're in government, we said we're going to...
Meanwhile, Professor Vladimir Njudanso says the current concerns raised by the former president have been ironed out between Ghana and Burkina Faso, noting that there's not diplomatic tension between the two countries.
In the field that I am, diplomacy is continuous. It's a continuum. You don't stop and say, and as I'm saying, when that statement was made, some diplomatic efforts had been made. And since then, every diplomatic line that we have with Burkina Faso are still ongoing. And that's precisely because of security concerns that we are talking about. We need to help each other. We need to talk to each other. We need to assist each other. I was telling you that Mali, for example, has some diplomatic row with France. And there are ingredients that show that they really meant business. They've asked the Swedish ambassador to leave today. And they've given him 72 hours. That's a diplomatic row. Niger, they have broken diplomatic ties with America in terms of defense. And they have asked the Americans to close down their base over there. That is what is called a diplomatic row. We don't have that with Burkina Faso as we are saying right now.
That's our wrap up the 6 a.m. news right here on TV3. My name is Judith Brown. We'll go for a short break. We'll be back with the rest of New Day. Good morning.